The insurance agent looked at me with that practiced expression of sympathetic professionalism that people use when delivering devastating news. Mrs. Park, I'm very sorry for your loss. However, there's been a change to the beneficiary designation on your husband's policy. The current beneficiary is listed as Karen Park, his sister. I stared at her across the desk in the Colorado Mutual Life Insurance office, certain I'd misheard. That's not possible. I'm the beneficiary. I've always been the beneficiary. She turned her computer screen toward me. There it was, in the policy management system beneficiary change form dated 8 months ago. Michael's signature, notarized, official. Changing the $3 million life insurance policy from his wife of 22 years to his sister. This must be a mistake, I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. My husband died 3 weeks ago. We have 2 kids in college. This policy was meant to. I understand this is difficult, Mrs. Park, but the beneficiary change was processed through proper channels, signed, notarized, submitted by Mr. Park himself 8 months before his passing. We've already begun processing the claim for Miss Karen Park. The room felt like it was tilting. My name is Jennifer Park. I'm 48 years old. I'm a senior forensic accountant with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, where I've spent the last 15 years investigating insurance fraud, money laundering, and financial document forgery. I know exactly what a fraudulent beneficiary change looks like, and I was staring at one right now. But let me back up. Let me start from the beginning. Michael and I met in graduate school at University of Colorado Boulder. He was getting his MBA. I was finishing my doctorate in forensic accounting. We were both 26, ambitious, ready to conquer the world together. We got married a year later, built a life in Denver. I joined the FBI. He became CFO of a mid-sized tech company. We had 2 kids, Emma, now 20, junior at Yale, David, 18, freshman at Stanford. We were happy, not perfect, what marriage is, but solid, partners, best friends, the kind of couple who still held hands at the grocery store after 22 years. Michael had a massive heart attack 3 weeks ago. No warning. He was 50 years old, healthy, ran marathons, just collapsed in his office one Tuesday afternoon. Dead before the ambulance arrived. The grief had been crushing, trying to hold myself together for the kids while planning a funeral, notifying friends, dealing with the endless administrative nightmare that follows sudden death. The life insurance policy had been the one thing I wasn't worried about. Michael had taken it out 15 years ago when Emma was born, $3 million, enough to ensure the kids could finish college, enough to keep me stable while I figured out life as a widow. Except now, sitting in this insurance office, being told the money was going to Michael's sister Karen instead of me, I felt something shift beneath the grief. Cold clarity, professional focus. The same mental state I entered when reviewing suspected fraud cases at the FBI. I'd like to see the beneficiary change form, I said to the agent. The original, not just the digital record. Mrs. Park, I'm not sure that's... I'm a federal investigator. My husband is dead under circumstances I'm now questioning. I have a right to review any documents related to his financial affairs. Get me the form. She hesitated, then pulled it from the file. I examined it with the same scrutiny I'd use on a fraud case. And within 30 seconds, I knew the signature was wrong. Not dramatically wrong, not obviously forged, but wrong in ways that only someone who'd seen Michael sign thousands of documents over 22 years would notice. The M in Michael too angular, he always curved it. The Park signature, the K extended too far. Michael's Ks were always compact. The pressure of the pen too light. Michael pressed hard when he signed. Legacy of his father teaching him a signature should mean something. This wasn't Michael's signature. It was a very good forgery, but it was a forgery. I looked at the notary stamp. Rebecca Morrison, Colorado Notary Public, Commission, says 847392, expires dos sobre 2025-7. I pulled out my phone and opened the database I had access to through my FBI credentials, Colorado Secretary of State Notary Registry. Rebecca Morrison, Commission JOS 847392. Status deceased. Date of death, March 15th, 2023. The beneficiary change form was dated November 8th, 2023, 8 months after Rebecca Morrison died. Someone had forged Michael's signature and used a dead notary stamp to change the life insurance beneficiary. And I had a pretty good idea who I need to speak with Karen Park, I told the insurance agent. Today, is there a number where I can reach her? Mrs. Park, I really think you should discuss this with your attorney. I don't need an attorney. I am a federal fraud investigator. Give me Karen's contact information. The agent, clearly uncomfortable, provided a phone number. I walked out of that office and sat in my car in the parking lot, my hands gripping the steering wheel. Michael's sister Karen, 46 years old, single, worked in HR at some corporate office. We'd never been close. Karen had always been cold toward me, though I'd never understood why. But why would she forge Michael's signature to steal his life insurance? I called the number. Karen answered on the third ring. Jennifer, I was wondering when you'd call. Her voice was calm, almost smug. Karen, I just came from the insurance company. They said Michael changed the beneficiary to you. That's not possible. Michael would never. Michael and I had a long conversation about it last year, Karen interrupted smoothly. He was worried about you, about your judgment. He wanted to make sure the kids would be taken care of properly. What are you talking about? Jennifer, we both know your priorities, your career, the FBI. Michael always came second. He told me he was concerned that if something happened to him, you'd remarry quickly and let some new husband squander the insurance money. He wanted me to manage it to make sure Emma and David got what they needed. The audacity took my breath away. That's a lie. Michael never said anything like that. We had a good marriage. Did you? Because Michael told me things. Told me how lonely he was, how you were always working, how he felt like a single parent half the time. Every word was calculated to hurt, and it worked. Even knowing she was lying, the accusations stung. Karen, I want to see documentation. I want to see proof that Michael actually signed this. The insurance company has the form, signed and notarized, all legal and proper. Jennifer, I know you're grieving, but you need to accept this. Michael made his decision. If Michael really wanted you to have the insurance money, why didn't he tell me? Because he knew you'd react exactly like this. Hysterical, accusatory. He wanted to avoid the drama. She paused. Look, I don't want to fight with you. Your family, and you just lost your husband. I'm willing to give you some of the money, say $500,000 to help with immediate expenses. That's fair, isn't it? The kids will still get everything they need, and you'll have enough to get by. 500,000 out of 3 million. She was offering me a fraction of my own husband's life insurance and framing it as generosity. I'm not taking your offer, Karen. Then I guess we'll let the insurance company and the lawyers sort it out. But Jennifer, that form is legal. It's signed. It's notarized. You're not going to win this fight. Her voice hardened. And if you try to make trouble, if you drag this out and create a scene, everyone's going to know what kind of person you are. The cold, career-obsessed wife who cared more about the FBI than her own husband. Is that really how you want Emma and David to remember you? She hung up. I sat in that parking lot for a long time, feeling grief and rage twist together into something sharp and focused. Karen thought she could steal $3 million by forging a signature and using a dead notary's stamp. Karen thought I was just a grieving widow who wouldn't know how to fight back. Karen had made a critical error. She committed insurance fraud against a woman who investigates insurance fraud for a living. That night, I sat down with Emma and David in our living room. They'd flown home for the funeral, stayed through the first awful weeks. Emma had deferred her fall semester. David was taking classes remotely. They deserved to know what was happening. There's a problem with Dad's life insurance. I began carefully. The beneficiary was changed to Aunt Karen 8 months ago. Emma's face went white. What? Why would Dad do that? He didn't. I think Karen forged the paperwork. David leaned forward. How do you know? Because I'm a forensic accountant who investigates fraud professionally. The signature on the beneficiary change form isn't Dad's, and the notary who supposedly verified it, She died 8 months before the form was dated. So what do we do? Emma asked. We prove it, and we make sure Karen faces consequences. Mom, David said quietly, Karen's family, Dad's sister. Do we really want to? Your father spent his entire career building financial security for this family. Someone forged his signature to steal that security. Yes, we're really going to fight this. Over the next 3 days, I did what I do professionally. I investigated. I pulled Michael's signature from every document I could find: bank statements, tax returns, mortgage refinancing papers, birthday cards, 22 years of signatures. I scanned them all, created a forensic comparison analysis. The signature on the beneficiary change form didn't match, not even close. Once you knew what to look for, I documented Rebecca Morrison's death certificate, proved the notary stamp was fraudulent. I pulled Karen's financial records. I have access through FBI databases for active investigations, and this was absolutely an active investigation now. Karen Park, income $68,000 from HR position, assets minimal, debt $427,000. Credit cards maxed out, medical bills and collections, car repossession notice, facing foreclosure on her condo. Karen was drowning financially, had been for years. And 8 months ago, right around the time the beneficiary change form was supposedly signed, Karen had started working at a new company, Western Corporate Solutions, a large HR and benefits administration firm that handled employee benefits for Michael's company, including life insurance. I felt the pieces click into place. Karen got a job at the company that administered Michael's life insurance. She had access to beneficiary change forms. She had access to the systems. She could have easily pulled Michael's policy information, forged a change form, and submitted it internally. But she'd made one critical mistake using a dead notary stamp. Probably found it at an estate sale or bought it online, thought it would look official. Didn't realize that forensic investigators routinely verify notary credentials. I documented everything, built a case file like I would for any FBI fraud investigation: signature analysis, notary verification, Karen's financial motive, her employment at the benefits administration company, timeline showing she gained access exactly when the fraud occurred. Then I made a phone call. Colorado Bureau of Investigation. How may I direct your call? Insurance Fraud Division, please. I was transferred to Detective Marcus Webb, a CBI investigator I'd worked with on several joint FBI state cases. Jennifer Park? Damn, I'm sorry about Michael. I heard about Marcus. I need to report an insurance fraud case. The victim is my husband's estate. The suspect is his sister. She forged a beneficiary change form using a dead notary's stamp to steal a $3 million life insurance payout. A pause. You're serious? Completely. I have forensic documentation, signature analysis, proof the notary was deceased when the form was supposedly filed, financial motive, timeline showing the suspect had access through her employment. This is a slam dunk case. Send me everything. I'll open an investigation today. I also called the insurance company's fraud department directly. This is Dr. Jennifer Park, FBI Senior Forensic Accountant. I'm reporting a fraudulent beneficiary change on policy number LF8472938. The signature is forged, the notary stamp is from a deceased notary, and I have documentary evidence proving fraud. I'm requesting the claim be frozen pending criminal investigation. The fraud investigator I spoke with took me seriously. When an FBI agent reports fraud, companies listen. We'll freeze the claim immediately, Dr. Park. Can you provide your documentation? I'll have it to you within the hour. Karen called me that night. Her voice was different now. Not smug, scared. Jennifer, what did you do? The insurance company called me. Said there's a fraud investigation. This is insane. Karen, you forged Michael's signature on a beneficiary change form. You used a notary stamp from Rebecca Morrison, who died 8 months before the form was supposedly signed. You committed insurance fraud. I don't know what you're talking about. You work at Western Corporate Solutions. the company that administers benefits for Michael's employer. You had access to change forms. You knew Michael had a $3 million policy. You were drowning in debt. You saw an opportunity. Silence. Karen, here's what's going to happen. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation is opening a criminal case. The FBI is consulting because I'm a federal agent who was targeted. The insurance company has frozen your claim, and I have forensic evidence that will hold up in any court. You can't prove. I can prove everything. Signature analysis showing the forgery. Notary verification showing Rebecca Morrison was dead. Your employment records showing access. Your financial records showing motive. Karen, I investigate fraud professionally. You committed fraud against a fraud investigator. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? Her voice cracked. Jennifer, please. I'm in trouble. I owe so much money. I was desperate. Michael was already gone. I thought no one would know. You thought wrong? What if I drop the claim? Just walk away. You get the insurance money. I disappear. No police, no charges. No, you don't get to commit a felony and walk away because you got caught. Jennifer, I'm Michael's sister. His only family besides you and the kids. He wouldn't want you to send me to prison. Michael wouldn't want you to forge his signature and steal his children's inheritance. You made a choice. Now you face consequences. I hung up. The next day, Colorado Bureau of Investigation executed a search warrant on Karen's home. They found the notary stamp, Rebecca Morrison's stamp purchased from an estate liquidation sale for $35. They found practice sheets where Karen had practiced forging Michael's signature, dozens of attempts until she got it close enough. They found emails between Karen and someone named Travis, her boyfriend. I later learned discussing how the insurance money would solve all their financial problems. They found evidence that she'd planned this for months, gotten the job at Western Corporate Solutions specifically to gain access to Michael's policy. She'd been waiting for him to die, possibly even hoping for it. The thought made me physically ill. Detective Webb called me with the update. Jennifer, we have enough for multiple felony charges: insurance fraud, forgery, identity theft, filing false documents. Your sister-in-law is looking at serious prison time. Good. There's something else. We found communication suggesting she wasn't working alone. The boyfriend, Travis Matthews, appears to have helped. He has a record prior fraud convictions. We think he's the one who coached her through this. Arrest them both. Already done. They're in custody. Bail hearing tomorrow. That night, Emma came into my room where I was working on my laptop, reviewing the evidence files one more time. Mom, are you okay? I'm fine, honey. You're not fine. You lost Dad 3 weeks ago, and now you're prosecuting his sister. I closed the laptop. Emma, your father worked his entire career to provide for you and David. That insurance policy was his way of making sure you'd be okay if something happened to him. Karen tried to steal that. I'm not going to let her. I know, but Mom, you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to be the investigator and the widow and the strong one all the time. I pulled her into a hug. I know, baby, but this is what I'm good at. Following the evidence, building the case, making sure bad people face consequences. It's the only thing that makes sense right now. She held me tighter. Dad would be proud of you. I hoped she was right. The bail hearing was the next morning. I sat in the courtroom, front row, so Karen would have to see me. She looked terrible, hair unwashed, eyes red from crying, wearing an orange jail jumpsuit. The prosecutor argued against bail. Your Honor, the defendant committed insurance fraud targeting her own family. She forged her deceased brother's signature. She's a flight risk with nothing keeping her in Colorado. Karen's public defender tried to argue for reduced bail. Your Honor, my client has no prior criminal record. She's not a danger to the community. She's a danger to anyone with a life insurance policy, the judge interrupted dryly. Bail is set at $500,000. Karen couldn't make bail. She'd have to wait in jail until trial. As they led her out, she looked at me, not angry, not defiant, just broken. I didn't feel sorry for her. The investigation expanded over the next 2 weeks. The FBI got involved officially when they discovered Travis Matthews had used similar schemes in 3 other states. He and Karen had been running a sophisticated operation, target recently deceased people with large life insurance policies, forge beneficiary changes, collect payouts. They'd successfully stolen $1.8 million from four other families before targeting Michael. Those families were located and notified. Every one of them had accepted the beneficiary change without question, thinking their loved one had made the decision before death. None of them had a forensic accountant for a spouse who knew how to spot forgery. The case built momentum. Local news picked it up, then national news. Widow exposes sister-in-law's insurance fraud scheme. FBI agent uses her own expertise to catch killer. Wait, killer? I called Detective Webb immediately. What's this about Karen being a killer? Jennifer, we need to talk. Can you come to CBI headquarters? I sat across from Detective Marcus Webb in a conference room at Colorado Bureau of Investigation headquarters, watching him arrange documents on the table between us with the careful precision of someone about to deliver news that would shatter a world. Jennifer, when someone dies suddenly of a heart attack at age 50, we don't typically investigate. Heart attacks happen. They're tragic but natural. He paused. But when that person's life insurance beneficiary was changed through fraud 8 months before death, and when the person who committed that fraud had $427,000 in debt and clear financial motive, we take a second look. My hands went cold. What did you find? I requested Michael's complete medical file from the hospital, his autopsy report, toxicology screening. Webb slid a folder across the table. The initial autopsy listed cause of death as acute myocardial infarction heart attack, massive, sudden, the kind that kills quickly. Michael was healthy, I said. He ran marathons. His last physical 6 months ago was perfect, low cholesterol, normal blood pressure, strong heart. I know, that's what made me look deeper. Webb opened the folder. The toxicology screening that was done at the time of death was standard. They tested for common drugs, alcohol, illegal substances, all negative. But Jennifer, standard tox screens don't test for everything. They test for what we expect to find. What are you saying? I'm saying that when a healthy 50-year-old man with no cardiac history dies suddenly of a massive heart attack, and when someone with clear financial motive forged documents to inherit his life insurance, we should expand the toxicology testing. The room felt like it was spinning. You think Karen poisoned him? I think we should find out. He pulled out another document. I've requested an expanded toxicology panel. It'll test for substances that can induce cardiac arrest but aren't typically screened for: digitalis, potassium chloride, insulin, certain cardiac glycosides, things that mimic natural heart attacks. How long will that take? The lab can expedite it. We'll have results in 72 hours. He looked at me carefully. Jennifer, I need you to understand what this means. If we find something, this becomes a murder investigation. Your husband's death wasn't natural. Someone killed him. I thought about Michael, about the last time I'd seen him alive, kissing me goodbye that Tuesday morning, coffee in hand, promising to pick up dinner on his way home. About the call from his assistant 4 hours later, hysterical, saying Michael had collapsed. About the doctor in the emergency room telling me he was already gone. About planning his funeral while Karen had already forged the documents to steal his insurance. Do the tests, I said. Those 72 hours were the longest of my life. I went home and did what I do professionally. I investigated. I pulled every record I could access about Michael's last week's credit card statements, calendar, emails, phone logs, looking for patterns, anomalies, anything that didn't fit. And I found something. 3 weeks before Michael died, he had lunch with Karen. His calendar showed it. Lunch with Karen, 12:30, the kitchen. That was unusual. Michael and Karen weren't close. They talked maybe 3 times a year, birthdays, holidays. Why would they have lunch? I checked Michael's credit card statement. The kitchen, Denver, $67.43, 2 entrees, 2 drinks. I called the restaurant, asked to speak to the manager. This is going to sound strange, but my husband had lunch there 3 weeks ago, and I think he left something behind. Is there any way to check if anyone on staff remembers him? Michael Park, he would have been with a woman, probably looked like a business lunch. The manager was sympathetic. Let me ask our servers. Can you describe him? I did. Sent a photo from my phone. 20 minutes later, the manager called back. One of our servers remembers them. She said they seemed tense. The woman kept pushing the man to drink something. Tea, she thinks. He didn't want it at first, but eventually drank it to be polite. Anything else you need? Tea that Karen insisted Michael drink 3 weeks before he died. I checked Michael's emails, found one from Karen sent 2 days before that lunch. Michael, we need to talk about Mom's estate. Can you meet me for lunch Tuesday? It's important. Michael's mother had died 4 years ago. Her estate had been settled years ago. There was nothing to discuss. Karen had lured Michael to lunch under false pretenses, made him drink something. 3 weeks later, he was dead. I documented everything, sent it to Detective Webb. His response came within an hour. Toxicology results just came back. You need to see this. I drove to CBI headquarters. Webb was waiting with Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the medical examiner who'd conducted Michael's autopsy. Dr. Park, Dr. Mitchell began. The expanded toxicology panel found traces of digoxin in your husband's system. High levels, enough to induce cardiac arrest in a healthy person. Digoxin, I repeated. That's a heart medication. Correct. It's used therapeutically for heart conditions at low doses, but at high doses, it's lethal, causes irregular heartbeat, arrhythmia, cardiac arrest. And here's the thing, it metabolizes quickly. Within a few weeks, it's nearly undetectable. If someone gave Michael a high dose 3 weeks before his death, it would damage his heart muscle, weaken it, then a second dose at the right time would cause massive cardiac arrest. You're saying someone poisoned him twice. That's our theory. Initial dose to weaken the heart, second dose to kill. It would look like natural heart failure. We would never have caught it if we hadn't done expanded testing. Webb pulled up security footage on his laptop. Jennifer, do you recognize this man? The video showed a pharmacy interior, a man at the counter, talking to the pharmacist, scruffy beard, baseball cap, but clearly visible. Travis Matthews, Karen's boyfriend. That's Travis, I said. This is from a pharmacy in Lakewood 4 weeks before Michael died. Travis Matthews presenting a prescription for digoxin. The prescription was written by Dr. Alan Foster, who we've since confirmed was a real doctor, whose prescription pad was stolen from his clinic 2 months earlier. Travis stole prescription pads and filled fake prescriptions for digoxin. Not just digoxin, also potassium supplements, which enhance digoxin's effects. And here's the key. Travis has a prior conviction for identity theft and fraud. He knows how to forge documents, steal credentials, work the system. Webb pulled up more footage. This is from 3 weeks before Michael's death, the kitchen restaurant. Watch the woman at this table. The video showed Karen and Michael at lunch. Karen pulling something from her purse, a small container, opening it under the table, pouring something into the teapot when Michael wasn't looking. She drugged him at lunch, I said, my voice flat. We believe so. Initial dose to weaken his heart. Then Webb pulled up another video. This is from Michael's office building the day he died. Watch the person approaching the elevator at 1:47 p.m. A woman in a delivery uniform, baseball cap, carrying a package. But I recognized the walk, the build. That's Karen. Signed in as Julie Martinez, courier delivery, went up to the 4th floor, Michael's office. Surveillance shows her entering his office at 1:52 p.m. Michael collapsed at 2:14 p.m., 22 minutes later. Dr. Mitchell added if she gave him a concentrated dose of digoxin combined with potassium, possibly in a drink, possibly telling him it was something for stress or energy, it would take about 20 minutes to cause fatal arrhythmia. I stared at the screen, at Karen in a disguise, carrying poison to my husband's office. She murdered him. Yes, Webb said quietly. We believe Karen and Travis planned this together. Travis acquired the digoxin. Karen administered it, first dose at lunch to weaken his heart, second dose at his office to kill him. They waited for him to die. Then Karen submitted the forged beneficiary change and claimed the $3 million. How long had they been planning this? Webb pulled out phone records. Based on text messages we recovered, at least 6 months. Here's one from Travis to Karen, dated 9 months ago. Once the policy is in your name and he's gone, we're set for life. Another text, Karen to Travis, 7 months ago, talked to the pharmacist friend. He says digoxin is perfect, looks natural, no one would suspect. Another from 4 months ago, Travis to Karen, found a doctor's prescription pad online, $500. Can you cover it? They'd planned my husband's murder the way someone plans a vacation. Casually, excitedly, with no apparent guilt. There's more, Webb said. We found evidence they were researching how to make it look natural. Google searches on Karen's laptop for "Can digoxin be detected after death? How long does digoxin stay in system, inducing heart attack undetectable?" And on Travis's computer, Webb continued, searches for life insurance payout timeline. How soon after death can you claim life insurance? Spending insurance money without suspicion. They'd already been planning how to spend the money before Michael was even dead. We found something else, Dr. Mitchell said, her voice gentler. In the weeks before Michael died, he told several coworkers he'd been feeling unusually tired, dizzy, nauseous. Those are all symptoms of digoxin toxicity. Karen had been poisoning him slowly, and he didn't realize it. I thought about Michael coming home exhausted those last few weeks, saying he must be getting old, couldn't keep up with marathon training like he used to, joking about needing more coffee to get through the day. He'd been dying and didn't know it. When we searched Karen's home, Webb said, we found the remaining digoxin tablets hidden in her bedroom. We found notes in Travis's handwriting calculating dosages. We found a burner phone they used to communicate that had messages planning the timeline. He showed me the messages. Travis, Friday is perfect. Office will be busy, lots of people around when he collapses. Less suspicious than if he dies alone. Karen, I'm scared. What if something goes wrong? Travis, nothing will go wrong. You give him the drink, you leave, he has a heart attack. Everyone will think it's natural. Then we wait a week and file the claim. Karen, and then we're free. Travis, then we're rich. I looked at these messages, these people planning to murder my husband like they were planning dinner reservations, and felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. I want murder charges, I said. Both of them. Already filed, Webb said. First-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, forgery, identity theft. Karen and Travis are both being held without bail pending trial. What happens now? Now, we build the case. And Jennifer, I'm going to be honest with you, they're going to fight. Their attorneys will argue the toxicology evidence is circumstantial. They'll claim the pharmacy footage is unclear. They'll say the restaurant poisoning is speculation. Then we make the case airtight. I said, I've been investigating fraud and financial crimes for 15 years. I know how to build evidence that holds up in court. Give me access to everything, and I'll help you prove they murdered him. Webb nodded. I was hoping you'd say that. Over the next 3 months, I did what I do best. I investigated. I traced every financial transaction Karen and Travis made in the year before Michael's death, found that Karen had started her job at Western Corporate Solutions exactly when she'd need access to beneficiary change forms, found that Travis had made 5 deposits of $500 each to his account from consulting, the same week he'd purchased the forged prescription pads. I analyzed their communications. They'd been sloppy, deleting texts from their main phones, but forgetting about the burner phone. I recovered hundreds of messages planning the murder, discussing methods, celebrating when the plan worked. I interviewed Michael's coworkers, found 3 who remembered him mentioning feeling unwell in the weeks before his death. Found his assistant who remembered a courier, Karen in disguise, bringing him an energy drink that afternoon. Michael had drunk it because he felt tired and thought it would help. That energy drink had killed him. I worked with Dr. Mitchell to create a timeline. First dose of digoxin at the restaurant lunch, confirmed by digoxin metabolites in Michael's hair sample, showing exposure 3 weeks before death. Progressive symptoms over the following weeks. Second, fatal dose administered at his office. Death 22 minutes later. The evidence was overwhelming, but Karen and Travis weren't going down quietly. Karen's attorney tried to get me disqualified from assisting the investigation. Dr. Park is emotionally compromised. She's the victim's widow. Her involvement in building the case creates bias. The judge wasn't impressed. Dr. Park is a senior FBI forensic accountant with 15 years of experience investigating financial crimes. Her professional expertise is relevant. Motion denied. Travis's attorney tried a different approach. He claimed Travis was just Karen's boyfriend, didn't know about the murder, was only involved in the insurance fraud. The text messages proved otherwise. Travis to Karen, once you give him the second dose, it's done. No going back. Karen to Travis, I know I can do this for us. Travis wasn't a bystander, he was the architect. The preliminary hearing was in December, 3 months after Michael's death. Emma and David came home from college for it. They sat with me in the courtroom as the prosecution laid out the evidence. The toxicology report showing digoxin, the security footage showing Karen and Travis at the pharmacy, at the restaurant, at Michael's office building, the forged prescription pads, the text messages planning murder, the financial motive, Karen's $427,000 debt, the $3 million insurance policy. Emma was crying by the end. David's jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth would crack. The judge ordered both defendants held without bail pending trial. The evidence of premeditated murder is substantial. The defendants pose a flight risk and a danger to the community. As they led Karen out in handcuffs, she looked at me. Not with anger, not with defiance, with fear. She knew what was coming. That night, Emma broke down. Mom, they killed Dad. They planned it for months. They poisoned him and watched him die and then tried to steal his insurance money. How could Aunt Karen do that? She was family. I held my daughter while she sobbed. I don't know, baby. People do terrible things for money sometimes. They lose sight of what matters. I want them to pay, Emma said fiercely. I want them to rot in prison for the rest of their lives. They will. I promise you they will. David was quieter, more withdrawn. Mom, the messages said Dad was feeling sick for weeks before. He told them he was tired. They knew they were killing him, and they just kept going. I know. If you hadn't investigated, if you hadn't figured out the insurance fraud, they would have gotten away with it. Maybe, but I did investigate because that's what I'm trained to do, and because your father deserved justice. He deserved to be alive, David said, his voice breaking. And there it was, the truth I'd been avoiding. No amount of justice would bring Michael back. No murder conviction would let me hear his laugh again. No prison sentence would return the future we'd planned together. But it would ensure that the people who'd killed him faced consequences. It would mean Michael's death wasn't just written off as a random heart attack. It would mean the truth came out. The media coverage exploded after the preliminary hearing. FBI agent exposes sister-in-law's murder plot. Forensic accountant uses skills to solve husband's murder. Colorado woman charged with poisoning brother for life insurance. News trucks camped outside our house. Reporters called constantly. Social media lit up with the story. Some of the coverage was sympathetic. Brilliant investigator brings justice for murdered husband. Some was sensational. Black widow sister murders brother for millions. Some was victim blaming. Why didn't the wife notice her husband was being poisoned? That one stung. I'd asked myself the same question 1,000 times. Why hadn't I seen that Michael was being poisoned? Why hadn't I noticed Karen's sudden interest in having lunch? Why hadn't I questioned the beneficiary change immediately instead of spending 3 weeks grieving first? My therapist, yes, I'd started seeing one, helped me work through it. Jennifer, you're not a psychic. You're a forensic accountant, not a toxicologist. Michael's symptoms were subtle and could have been attributed to stress or age. Karen's lunch invitation seemed normal, awkward family trying to reconnect. The beneficiary change looked legitimate on the surface. You're blaming yourself for not seeing things that were deliberately hidden from you. But I should have. You did everything right. You investigated when you suspected fraud. You found the evidence. You exposed a murder. Stop punishing yourself for not preventing something you had no reason to suspect was happening. She was right. Logically, I knew she was right. But emotionally, I still felt like I'd failed Michael. Karen tried to make a deal. Her attorney approached the prosecution in January. Miss Park is willing to plead guilty to insurance fraud and manslaughter if the murder charges are dropped. She'll serve 15 years. The prosecutor called me before responding. What do you think, Jennifer? No deal. She planned this for months. She poisoned him twice. She watched him die. That's first-degree murder. I want a trial and I want a conviction. Understood. The prosecutor rejected the deal. Travis tried next. His attorney, Mr. Matthews, is willing to testify against Karen Park in exchange for a reduced sentence. He'll admit to helping with the insurance fraud, but claims the murder was Karen's idea. Again, the prosecutor called me. Travis was the architect, I said. The text messages prove it. He acquired the poison. He coached Karen through it. He calculated the dosages. He's not getting a deal. What if his testimony helps convict Karen? We don't need his testimony. We have the physical evidence, the toxicology reports, the surveillance footage, the messages, the financial motive. Let them both go to trial. Let a jury decide. Both deals were rejected. The trial was scheduled for April, 6 months after Michael's death. I spent those months preparing, working with the prosecution, organizing evidence, making sure every detail was documented and defensible. Emma and David went back to college, but called every day. They wanted updates. They wanted to know the case was progressing. They wanted justice for their father. As the trial date approached, I received a letter from Karen. It was handwritten, sent from the county jail where she was being held. Dear Jennifer, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know you hate me. I deserve that. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I never wanted it to go this far. Travis convinced me it would work. He said Michael wouldn't suffer. He said it would look natural. He said we'd be free. I was desperate. I was drowning in debt. I'd lost everything. Travis made it sound so easy. Just a few pills. Just a drink. Just wait. I didn't think about Emma and David. I didn't think about you. I only thought about escaping my problems. Michael was my brother. I loved him once. I know that doesn't matter now. I know what I did is unforgivable. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry for what it's worth. Karen! I read that letter 3 times. Then I filed it with the evidence and never responded. Sorry doesn't bring back the dead. Sorry doesn't erase 6 months of planning murder. Sorry doesn't change the fact that she poisoned her own brother and watched him die so she could steal his life insurance. Karen was sorry she got caught. That's all. The night before the trial began, I sat in Michael's home office, the room I hadn't been able to enter since his death. His desk was exactly as he'd left it. Coffee mug still half full, reading glasses, a photo of the 4 of us from Emma's high school graduation. I picked up the photo, Michael's arm around me, Emma and David beaming, all of us happy, all of us whole. This was what Karen had destroyed. Not just Michael's life, but our family's future. Emma and David's father, my husband of 22 years, the plans we'd made, the retirement we'd been saving for, growing old together. All of it gone because Karen wanted money she hadn't earned and Travis convinced her murder was easier than bankruptcy. I set the photo down and made a promise. Michael, I'm going to make sure they pay for what they did to you. I'm going to make sure the truth comes out. I'm going to make sure justice is served. I promise. The trial began the next morning. The courtroom was packed. Every seat filled, overflow crowd in the hallway, local news cameras outside. People for Karen Park and Travis Matthews. Charges: first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, identity theft, forgery. I sat in the front row with Emma and David, my hands folded in my lap, my face carefully neutral, professional, controlled. The way I'd learned to be in 15 years of testifying as an FBI expert witness. But inside I was screaming. The prosecution was led by Assistant District Attorney Rebecca Chen, a veteran prosecutor who'd won 34 murder convictions in her career. She stood for her opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about greed, about 2 people who decided that $3 million was worth more than a human life, about a sister who poisoned her own brother, not once but twice, and watched him die so she could steal his life insurance. Rebecca walked them through the timeline. The forged beneficiary change, Karen's $427,000 in debt, Travis's criminal history, the stolen prescription pads, the digoxin purchase, the restaurant lunch where Karen administered the first dose, the 3 weeks of Michael suffering from mysterious symptoms, the final dose at his office, his death 22 minutes later. The evidence will show that Karen Park and Travis Matthews planned this murder for 6 months. They researched methods, they acquired poison, they forged documents, they executed their plan, and they would have gotten away with it if not for one thing. Rebecca gestured toward me. The victim's wife, Dr. Jennifer Park, is a senior FBI forensic accountant who investigates fraud professionally. When she reviewed the beneficiary change form, she immediately recognized it as fraudulent. She identified the forged signature. She verified that the notary was deceased. She followed the evidence, and what she found was not just insurance fraud, but murder. The defense attorneys, Thomas Brennan for Karen, Marcus Webb for Travis, tried to create reasonable doubt. Brennan stood. The prosecution wants you to believe that Karen Park is a cold-blooded killer, but what they're not telling you is that she's a desperate woman who made terrible choices. Yes, she forged the beneficiary form. That's fraud, and she'll plead guilty to that. But murder? There's no direct evidence Karen gave Michael digoxin. No witness saw her do it. No confession. Just speculation based on timing and surveillance footage that could show anything. Marcus Webb echoed this. Travis Matthews is guilty of helping with insurance fraud. He admits that, but murder. The prosecution's theory requires you to believe that Travis, a man who'd never met Michael Park, who had no personal grudge against him, helped plan and execute an elaborate poisoning scheme. Where's the proof? Text messages that could be interpreted many ways. Pharmacy footage that's grainy at best. This is not proof beyond reasonable doubt. But Rebecca Chen had built an airtight case. The first witness was Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the medical examiner. She walked the jury through Michael's autopsy. Cause of death was acute myocardial infarction, a massive heart attack. But when we conducted expanded toxicology testing, we found high levels of digoxin, a cardiac medication that can induce heart attacks when given in toxic doses. Could this have been accidental? Rebecca asked. No. Michael Park had no prescription for digoxin, no medical reason to take it. The levels in his system were consistent with deliberate poisoning, not therapeutic use. How would someone administer this poison? Digoxin can be dissolved in liquid, tea, coffee, juice, energy drinks. It's tasteless at therapeutic doses, slightly bitter at high doses, but easily masked with sugar or flavoring. The defense tried to challenge this. Dr. Mitchell, isn't it possible Michael was taking digoxin without his wife's knowledge for some undisclosed health issue? No. His primary care physician confirmed he had no cardiac issues and no prescriptions for heart medications. Additionally, the pattern of exposure, an initial dose 3 weeks before death, followed by a fatal dose on the day of death, is consistent with deliberate poisoning, not self-medication. The second witness was Detective Marcus Webb from CBI. He presented the surveillance footage, the restaurant lunch, Karen pouring something into the teapot, Michael drinking it, the pharmacy footage of Travis purchasing digoxin with a forged prescription, the office building footage of Karen in disguise delivering a package to Michael's floor 22 minutes before he collapsed. We also recovered text messages between the defendants planning the murder. Webb testified. He read them aloud to the jury. Travis, once the policy is in your name and he's gone, we're set for life. Karen, I'm scared. What if something goes wrong? Travis, nothing will go wrong. You give him the drink, you leave, he has a heart attack. The jury sat in stunned silence. The third witness was Michael's assistant, Rebecca Torres. Mr. Park had been feeling unwell for a few weeks before he died. She testified, tired, dizzy, nauseous. He joked about getting old, but then, on the day he died, a courier delivered an energy drink to his office. She said it was from his sister, that she thought he could use a pick-me-up. Did you see this courier? Rebecca Chen asked.
Yes.
Woman, maybe late 40s, delivery uniform, baseball cap. She was only there a minute. Is this the courier? Rebecca showed her the security footage of Karen in disguise. Rebecca Torres studied it. The build looks right, the walk looks familiar, but I can't be 100% certain with the cap and uniform. What happened to the energy drink? Mr. Park drank it, said it tasted weird, but he was too tired to care. 20 minutes later, he collapsed. The defense attorneys tried to shake her testimony. Miss Torres, you said you can't be certain it was Karen Park in the footage. So you're speculating, aren't you? I'm telling you what I saw. A courier delivered a drink, allegedly from Mr. Park's sister. He drank it. He died 20 minutes later. You can draw your own conclusions. The fourth witness was the pharmacist who'd filled Travis's forged prescription. A man matching Mr. Matthews' description came in with a prescription for digoxin. The prescription looked legitimate. Doctor's signature, DEA number, all the standard information. I filled it. Did you verify the prescription was authentic? Rebecca asked. I called the doctor's office, listed on the prescription. Someone answered and confirmed it was valid. We've since learned that phone number was a burner phone registered to Travis Matthews. Rebecca told the jury he forged the prescription, then answered the verification call himself, confirming his own fraud. The defense had no effective cross-examination for that. The fifth witness was the restaurant server who'd waited on Karen and Michael. They seemed tense, she said. The woman kept insisting the man drink the tea. He didn't want it at first. She said something like, "It'll help you relax," or "It's good for you." He finally drank it to be polite. Did you notice anything unusual about the tea? The woman had brought her own tea bag, said she preferred herbal tea, and asked if we could steep it for her. We did. I thought it was odd, but not suspicious. Karen had brought her own tea digoxin dissolved in an herbal tea bag. The sixth witness was a digital forensics expert who'd analyzed Karen and Travis's devices. We recovered deleted text messages, internet search history, and digital communications showing extensive planning. Searches for digoxin lethal dose, poison that mimics heart attack, how long does digoxin stay in system, life insurance payout after death. He showed the jury Karen's laptop search history from 7 months before Michael's death. Can you murder someone with heart medication? The courtroom went silent. Then I testified. Rebecca Chen walked me through my credentials. FBI senior forensic accountant, 15 years investigating financial fraud, expert in detecting forged documents and insurance fraud. Dr. Park, when you first saw the beneficiary change form, what did you notice? The signature was wrong, not obviously forged, but wrong in subtle ways that only someone familiar with Michael's signature would recognize. The meet in Michael was too angular. Michael always curved it. The curves in Park extended too far. Michael's curves were always compact. The pen pressure was too light. Michael signed with heavy pressure. What else? The notary stamp. Rebecca Morrison, commission number 847392. I verified through the Colorado Secretary of State database that Rebecca Morrison died 8 months before the form was supposedly notarized. Someone used a dead notary's stamp to make the fraud look legitimate. What did this tell you? That someone with knowledge of beneficiary change procedures, access to the forms, and motivation to inherit Michael's life insurance had committed fraud. When I learned Karen worked at the company that administered Michael's benefits and had significant financial motive, the picture became clear. The defense attorney, Thomas Brennan, cross-examined me. Dr. Park, you were grieving your husband when you examined this form. Isn't it possible your judgment was clouded, that you saw fraud where there was none, because you didn't want to believe Michael had changed the beneficiary? No, I'm a trained forensic investigator. I examine documents objectively, regardless of emotional circumstances. The signature was forged. The notary was deceased. Those are facts, not emotions. But you had financial motivation to dispute the beneficiary change, didn't you? $3 million. I had motivation to find the truth. If Michael had legitimately changed the beneficiary, I would have accepted that, regardless of the financial impact. But he didn't. Karen forged his signature, used a dead notary stamp, and committed fraud. When I discovered that fraud, I also discovered evidence of murder. You're not a medical examiner, Dr. Park. You're not qualified to determine cause of death. I didn't determine cause of death. Dr. Mitchell did. I identified the insurance fraud, which led investigators to re-examine Michael's death. The expanded toxicology testing conducted by qualified medical professionals found digoxin poisoning. I simply connected the financial fraud to the suspicious death. Brennan tried another angle. Isn't it true that you pressured law enforcement to investigate Karen because you were angry about the beneficiary change? No, I provided evidence of fraud to law enforcement. They made the independent decision to investigate further. The murder charges are based on physical evidence, toxicology, surveillance footage, text messages, not on my emotions. But you want Karen convicted, don't you? You want revenge. I want justice. There's a difference. Revenge would be taking the law into my own hands. Justice is presenting evidence in a court of law and allowing a jury to determine guilt. That's what we're doing here. I stepped down from the stand. Emma squeezed my hand. You were amazing, Mom. The prosecution rested after 8 days of testimony. The defense called only 2 witnesses, character witnesses for Karen, who testified she'd always been a good person who made mistakes under financial pressure. The prosecution destroyed them on cross-examination. Did Karen tell you she was planning to murder her brother for insurance money? No, of course not. So you don't actually know what she's capable of when motivated by $3 million, do you? The defense rested quickly. They had no real defense. The evidence was overwhelming. Closing arguments took place on a Friday. Rebecca Chen summarized the evidence methodically. Karen Park and Travis Matthews researched murder methods. They acquired poison. They forged documents to inherit the victim's life insurance. They administered poison twice, once at a restaurant lunch, once at the victim's office. They watched Michael Park die. They filed fraudulent insurance claims. And they would have succeeded if not for the fact that they targeted a family where the widow happened to be an FBI fraud investigator who recognized their scheme. This is not reasonable doubt. This is not speculation. This is proof beyond any doubt that Karen Park and Travis Matthews murdered Michael Park for money, and they deserve to be held accountable. Thomas Brennan tried to create doubt. The prosecution has built a circumstantial case based on timing and surveillance footage that could be interpreted many ways. Yes, Karen made terrible choices with the insurance fraud. But murder, you cannot convict someone of murder based on it looks suspicious. That's not proof. That's not justice. The jury deliberated for 11 hours. I sat in the courthouse cafeteria with Emma and David, drinking bad coffee and waiting. What if they don't convict? Emma asked, her voice small. They will. The evidence is too strong. But what if? Emma, I've been involved in hundreds of fraud cases. I've testified in dozens of trials. I know how juries think they'll convict. At 4:47 p.m., we got the call, verdict reached. We filed back into the courtroom. Karen and Travis were brought in. Both looked exhausted, terrified. The jury foreman stood. In the case of People v. Karen Park on the charge of first-degree murder, how do you find guilty? Karen's face crumpled. She started crying. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder? Guilty. On the charge of insurance fraud? Guilty. 3 more charges. 3 more guilty verdicts. Then Travis, in the case of Travis Matthews on the charge of first-degree murder, how do you find guilty? Every single charge. Guilty on all counts. Emma grabbed my hand. David was crying silently. I felt something loosen in my chest. Relief, validation, justice. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later. As they led Karen and Travis out in handcuffs, Karen looked at me one last time. I'm sorry, she mouthed. I looked away. The sentencing hearing was packed even more than the trial had been. Victims' rights advocates, law enforcement officers I'd worked with over the years, Michael's colleagues, our friends, all there to see justice served. The judge allowed victim impact statements first. Emma went first. She was 20 years old but looked younger, standing at the podium in a black dress, voice shaking. Karen Park murdered my father. She poisoned him. She watched him suffer for weeks. She stood at his funeral and hugged me while knowing she'd killed him. She's not my aunt anymore. She's a murderer, and I hope she spends the rest of her life in prison thinking about what she did. Emma's voice broke. Dad was a good man. He worked hard. He loved us. He didn't deserve to die because his sister wanted money. I'll never get to see him walk me down the aisle at my wedding. I'll never get to introduce him to his grandchildren. Karen took that from me, from all of us. I hope the court gives her the maximum sentence possible. David went next, 18 years old, hands clenched at his sides. My father died thinking he had a heart attack, a natural death. He didn't know his own sister had poisoned him. He didn't know the person he'd trusted his whole life had decided he was worth more dead than alive. David's voice was steady, cold. Travis Matthews helped kill a man he'd never met for money. He's not sorry he did it. He's sorry he got caught. Neither of them deserve mercy. Then it was my turn. I stood at the podium and looked at Karen and Travis. 22 years, I began. That's how long Michael and I were married. We built a life together, raised 2 children, planned a future. Michael worked hard his entire career to provide for our family. That life insurance policy, the one you tried to steal, was his way of making sure we'd be okay if something happened to him. They pulled out a photo. Michael and me on our 20th anniversary. Happy, in love, alive. You took him from us, not in a moment of passion, not in an accident. You planned his murder for 6 months. You researched methods. You acquired poison. You administered it twice. You watched him suffer. You watched him die. And then you tried to profit from it. I set down the photo. Karen, you were Michael's sister. He loved you. He trusted you. You exploited that trust to murder him. There's no punishment severe enough for that betrayal. Travis, you helped murder a man you'd never met because you wanted money. You're a predator who found a desperate accomplice and convinced her that murder was easier than bankruptcy. I looked at the judge. Michael deserved better. My children deserved to grow up with their father. I deserved to grow old with my husband. You took all of that from us. I'm asking the court to impose the maximum sentence under the law. I sat down. Emma and David held my hands. The judge spoke. Karen Park and Travis Matthews, you have been convicted by a jury of your peers of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and related charges. These crimes represent a level of calculated cruelty that this court has rarely seen. She looked at Karen. Miss Park, you murdered your own brother. You poisoned him slowly, watched him suffer, and then delivered a fatal dose while disguised as a courier. You did this for money. $3 million that you felt entitled to, despite having done nothing to earn it. You betrayed every bond of family and human decency. Then at Travis, Mr. Matthews, you orchestrated this murder. You acquired the poison. You coached Miss Park through the killing. You are every bit as responsible for Michael Park's death as the person who administered the poison. The judge opened the sentencing order. Karen Park, you are hereby sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder. An additional 30 years for conspiracy to commit murder to run consecutively. 20 years for insurance fraud to run consecutively. Total effective sentence, life plus 50 years. Karen sobbed openly. Travis Matthews, you are hereby sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder. An additional 30 years for conspiracy to commit murder to run consecutively. Total effective sentence, life plus 30 years. You will both spend the rest of your natural lives in prison. You will never be free. You will never profit from your crimes. And Michael Park's family will have the knowledge that justice was served. The gavel came down. Emma broke down crying. David held her. I sat between my children, feeling something I hadn't felt in 8 months. Peace.
Not happiness. Michael was still gone. But peace in knowing that his killers would face consequences, that the truth had come out, that justice had been served.
If this story resonated with you, if you've ever lost someone you loved, if you've ever had to fight for justice when the system seems stacked against you, if you've ever wondered whether speaking up is worth the cost, I hope you'll subscribe to The Quiet Reckoning. This is where we tell the stories they don't want you to hear, stories where documentation defeats corruption, where transparency wins over secrecy, and where ordinary people armed with expertise and determination bring down those who think they're untouchable. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below telling me if someone you loved was murdered, would you have the strength to investigate and bring them to justice? I read every comment because there are more reckonings coming and they're just as powerful as this one. 3 months after the sentencing, I did something I'd been planning since the verdict. I established the Michael Park Memorial Foundation. Its mission to provide free forensic accounting services to families who suspect insurance fraud or financial crimes but can't afford professional investigation. The foundation also advocates for stronger verification requirements for insurance beneficiary changes, trains law enforcement in detecting financial fraud patterns, and educates the public about recognizing insurance scams. Emma joined the board while finishing her degree at Yale. David volunteers during school breaks. In our first year, we helped 17 families. We identified 3 cases of insurance fraud similar to Michael's beneficiary changes made through forged documents. All 3 were reversed. 2 resulted in criminal charges. We helped a widow discover her husband's accidental death was actually murder staged by his business partner for life insurance proceeds. We assisted an elderly man whose caregiver had forged power of attorney documents to drain his accounts. Every case we solved, every family we helped, felt like honoring Michael's memory. 1 year after Michael's death, I received a letter from a woman named Patricia Green in Ohio. Dear Dr. Park, I read about your husband's case in the news. I'm writing because something similar happened to my brother. He died of a heart attack at age 47. 3 months later, I discovered his business partner had changed the beneficiary on a $2 million policy to himself just weeks before my brother died. I reported it to police. They said there wasn't enough evidence to investigate. The insurance company said the beneficiary change was legitimate. I didn't know what to do. I'm not a lawyer or an investigator. I'm a teacher. I didn't have the skills to prove what I suspected. Then I read about your foundation. I'm hoping you can help. Patricia. I called her that day. Patricia, send me everything you have, every document, every record, every detail you remember. I'll review it personally. 2 weeks later, I'd identified the fraud. The signature on the beneficiary change didn't match. The notary was unlicensed in that state. The business partner had significant debts and clear financial motive. I connected Patricia with law enforcement in Ohio and provided forensic analysis pro bono. 6 months later, the business partner was arrested for insurance fraud and murder. Patricia called me crying. You gave my brother justice. You gave our family answers. Thank you. That's when I understood the full scope of what we'd built. The foundation wasn't just about honoring Michael's memory. It was about ensuring that other families, families without an FBI forensic accountant, families without investigative skills, families without resources, could still get justice when someone they loved was murdered for money. Emma graduated from Yale and went to law school. She wants to prosecute financial crimes. David is studying forensic accounting, following in my footsteps. Both of them driven by the same thing. I am making sure people like Karen and Travis face consequences. I'm 51 years old now. 3 years since Michael died. 3 years since I discovered my sister-in-law had murdered him. Karen is in federal prison in Colorado. She'll be there until she dies. She's 50 now. She'll die in prison. Travis is in a different federal facility. Also life without parole. He's 43. 30 years to think about the man he helped murder. I don't think about them often anymore. They're not worth my energy. Instead, I think about Michael, about the life we built, about the children we raised, about the legacy that continues through the foundation. I think about the 17 families we helped in year 1, the 32 we helped in year 2, the 47 we're on track to help this year. Every family represents someone who might have gone without justice if we hadn't been there. The quiet reckoning isn't about revenge. It's not about anger or hatred or destroying your enemies. It's about using the skills you've built, the expertise you've developed, the knowledge you've accumulated, and applying them with cold precision to expose the truth. When Karen and Travis murdered Michael, they thought they'd get away with it. They thought a forged signature and a fake notary stamp would be enough. They thought nobody would question a natural heart attack. They didn't account for the fact that Michael's widow was a senior FBI forensic accountant who'd spent 15 years investigating fraud. They didn't realize that the woman they were targeting had the exact skills needed to recognize their scheme, document their crimes, and build an airtight case that would send them to prison for life. That's the power of expertise, the power of refusing to accept easy answers, the power of following the evidence wherever it leads. I didn't destroy Karen and Travis out of revenge. I destroyed them because they murdered my husband, and I had the professional skills to prove it. The foundation Michael and I built together through his financial planning and my investigative work now helps dozens of families every year. Karen and Travis thought they were stealing $3 million. They ended up creating a legacy that protects families from predators like themselves. They thought they were committing the perfect crime. They targeted the wrong widow. Michael deserved better than to be murdered by his own sister for money. But because of the skills I'd built, because I refused to accept the heart attack narrative, because I investigated and documented and fought for the truth, his murder was exposed. His killers were convicted. His legacy lives on, and families across the country are safer because we turned tragedy into purpose. That's the quiet reckoning, not revenge. Justice.